So looking back to last year, distance was one of the words that absolutely skyrocketed in use. Social distance and physical distance, and this had me wondered, what about biological distance? If we just pass by each other on street randomly today, how truly far are we? Now each one of us has 2 parents and 4 grandparents and so on, so going back generations, somewhere our lineages will converge. And we call this the last common ancestor. Now, what about the last common ancestor of not just between us, but all of the humans that are alive today? We can model this, assuming every mating event completely at random, it only goes back about 20 generations to get to that person. But of course, we know that we don't mate randomly. So by taking many variables into account, right around the time the Aristotle was teaching the young Alexander the Great, walking somewhere in this world was the ancestor all of us shared. Now, even more remarkable fact is that if you keep tracing from the common ancestor, at some point in history, most of the people back then are related to that last common ancestor, and by extension, all of us. When the first pharaoh was ruling in Egypt, most people alive then were our shared ancestors. So if you trace back lineages, we can get to these remarkable insights. The threads converge and expand and converge again and make this giant, enormous network that connects all of us. Now, we are talking about the biological or genetic distance. So let's go even further back in time. Each one of 30 trillion cells in our body has small powerhouses called mitochondria. Now, mitochondria get passed down through mothers and have their own genome. So by analyzing mitochondrial DNA from people from all over the world, we know that we inherited our mitochondria from one woman living in Africa 150,000 years ago. And my story doesn't end here. We keep tracing our lineages even farther back and start making connections with all the living forms on Earth in the same way we find out about our human common ancestors. This enormous endeavor is called the Tree of Life, the concept that connects all of us. And this sounds like a self-explanatory concept, but it really isn't until you find out about the true implications of this, which is that no matter how distant, we and any living creature share common ancestors at some point in the last 4 billion year history of life. So yes, you and that chickadee that came to your hand in your winter walk, you are related. And the Tree of Life will tell you that what our last common ancestor looked like and when those lines split. And we know from the fossil record of ancient reptiles and amphibians that the birds' ancestry and ours coalesce about 325 million years ago. We know this by looking across ancient lines that split from ours and the birds and our common ancestry. Now, this is also the last common ancestor we share with dinosaurs and living reptiles because they split from the bird line of lineage. Now, the principles to find out about last common ancestors are what animals existed around the time of common ancestry and how they are related to one another. So using the same method, we can trace it to the last common ancestor of between us and a toad or between us and a goldfish. And by doing so, we're going progressively deeper in time. And just like those genetic tests, sometimes you face some ugly truth. So now I'm making a comparison with the fish that are most distant from us, lampreys and hagfish. And you look at them and yes, we are related, but they're not the kind of relatives that we would like to meet in a wedding reception. Especially if these fish just sneeze on you really hard. Hagfish have this remarkable ability to produce copious amount of slime. This is a photograph from a highway accident in Oregon where a truck dropped a crate of hagfish and made so much slime that a dozen vehicles lost control. But hagfish use this remarkable ability to defend themselves. They may appear like a swimming sausage to a casual passing shark, but take a bite and the mouth gets instantaneously filled with so much slime that the shark would sometimes choke to death. Now, for the other primitive fish, lampreys, they lead an utterly preposterous life. They hatch worm-like creatures in the sand and spend years slapping up water for tiny food particles and then suddenly transform into this body of an eel with a toothy showerhead attached to a mouth. They use this oral disc to latch onto other fish and suck blood. Now, going back to the principles we used, we need fossils close to the common ancestry, and we do have a variety of ancient fossil fishes. They're more respectable looking and had backbones, and they're typically armored with bony plates. But the problem is that we don't know how they are related to one another to predict a common ancestor. So I have been tackling this question by looking at fossil relatives of hagfish and lampreys. So this particular fossil hagfish came from the age of dinosaurs, and using a special technique, I'm showing the green dots that are actually preserved, fossilized slime. So on the lamprey side, we are even finding fossilized babies. Unlike modern lampreys, these fossilized lamprey babies were already predators. We found this really unique and ferocious looking feeding structure that is made of petal-like plates and rings of teeth. And this entire thing works like a suction cup that cuts and hooks into your skin. So they are vampires by birth. So with all that new information, I built a new family tree. And the result was rather striking. It predicted an armored, bony, fossilized fish at the common ancestry between us and hagfish and lampreys. So there are two implications. Number one, we didn't come from an animal that looked like hagfish or lampreys, which is probably a good news. Number two, hagfish and lampreys simplified their anatomy from this ancestral condition that we shared more than 500 million years ago. Fossils can only tell us so much, so I turned to genetic engineering to mutate genes in a very common aquarium pet fish, the zebrafish. This genome editing project led to a genetically modified zebrafish that somewhat looks like that last common ancestor. Now, we are using these mutant zebrafish to figure out the biology of the last common ancestor. So I hope you can now see how we start from one small curious question and expand onto a really big concept and then zoom in on again for some specific but very profound question about who we are, where we came from, and where we are going.